All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of Obscuracast. Hard to believe we're in double-digit episodes, Dano. As always, I have him with me as my co-host. What's going on, sir?
What's up, man? How are you?
It's another day, dude. We're getting on the holiday season, so that's pretty cool. Like I said, we've been sort of sporadic with episodes, but we're trying to get back on a tip where we're trying to do them at least as much as we can every week. But as you guys know, we sort of put out that misnomer or that moniker that we're going to be a little sporadic with the episodes, but we're trying to do them as quick as we can for you guys. But I know we have an interesting topic that I think you and I both have a little bit of knowledge about, and we want to sort of delve into it like we do with every episode. Also, want to remind you guys that we wanted to plug our socials. So we have an Instagram account as well as a X account. Just at Obscuracast.com or at Obscuracast on both X and Instagram. So if you guys want to follow those, we're going to get back on adding some more clips. We haven't done one for a couple episodes as far as adding like short form clips for you guys to digest the main topics that we sort of get into on a showly basis. But we'll start doing that again. And then we're going to start posting to X as well every time we do an episode, and maybe some like little factoids and tips and stuff that we can get from X and some of the channels or some of the handles we follow. So, but the topic that I wanted to get into, or that we wanted to get into tonight, was the whole idea of the Matrix Effect, just sort of the science, the consciousness, and the control aspect of it. So I think the most pertinent thing that I feel about this topic is that you don't necessarily need to believe in the phenomena to know that something's sort of off kilter and something's not right with how we live just daily life. Would you tend to agree with that? What's your view on that?
Yeah, sometimes, I don't know, I've had, and we'll get into it obviously deeper in the episode, but like, I've had a lot of instances of deja vu in my life. Between deja vu and then I've had instances where like, I've had a dream and then literally to a T, that dream has like happened.
So like manifested is what you're saying?
Yeah, like had some really interesting experiences, as far as that. So it's something I thought about for a long time.
So the common feelings, I guess, that we could both agree upon with like our own experiences with this sort of Matrix Effect, you can call it whatever you want. You can call it deja vu, you can call it the Matrix Effect, you can call it whatever you want. But essentially the feeling that like stuff is structured in a way that you're sort of going through a board game type of thing. So like if anybody's ever played Candyland, if anybody's ever played any kind of board game with a path, like an actual path that's like laid out before you, that's essentially what we're talking about. A lot of the common feelings, at least from what I've read and the research that we've done on the Matrix Effect, has been like the life on autopilot scenario, like time speeding up, even though it's the same amount of time, feeling like things are like exponentially moving faster, that kind of thing, as well as like the deja vu effect, like we were talking about before, where like stuff has happened, it's repetitive, something has happened before, you just are aware of it versus not being aware of it. It's a lot of people, like we'll get into two schools of thought too on this episode, which is really cool. We'll get into that a little bit later. A lot of people attribute the Matrix effect, of having scientific backing for the reason it's happening. They also have a spiritual aspect, which is sort of the other side of the coin, the other side of the spectrum, if you will. Where do you sort of sit on either one? Do you think it's more of a scientific explanation, or do you think it's more of a spiritual explanation, or do you think it's both? Where do you sit it?
I would kind of go with hybrid. I would go with both, because I think with the scientific explanation, I think that one is more like a physical. You have to have science with it, I feel like. Does that make sense?
No, it does. So like I think what you're getting at is there has to be a plausible, tangible,
physical
reason of why it's happening. I agree with you on that part of it. Yes.
So, and then as far as the spiritual aspect of it, like I also believe that with the science backs up that spiritual, they kind of go hand in hand. And we'll get into that later with
I think the two schools of thought that we're going to talk about is going to be really interesting because they're kind of overlapping in a way.
I'm trying not to like give it away.
Yeah, we don't want to give too much away. We don't want to have you the whole synopsis of the episode in the first 15 seconds. So
yeah.
But I think it's interesting how they overlap. The two schools of thought are interesting, and it's sort of cool to see sort of where they break down in difference versus similarity. Like the dynamic is cool. So we'll get into that a little bit later.
Yeah.
But as far as the feeling, I think we can all attribute certain points of our life. Like I said, whether it's deja vu, whether it's reincarnation, whether it could be a couple different things. So I think the cool thing is a lot of us for us, it's a feeling. Like, it's not something you can explain, but it's there. I think one of the coolest quotes I've heard, and you're not as in tune with the movies as I am, but one of the really cool quotes of the Matrix trilogy, and you can take the Matrix trilogy for whatever it's worth, whether you like the movies or don't like the movies, it takes a really cool perspective on the idea of what we're talking about. And one of the quotes is by one of the main characters. His name is Morpheus, and the other main character, who is Keanu Reeves' character in Neo, he says, it's like a splinter in your mind driving you mad. You know it's there, but you can't pin. I'm paraphrasing, of course, but it's like a splinter in your mind that you can't turn away from. It's just there.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought that was really interesting. But long story short, essentially it's not that's the whole allure of the Matrix Effect, is it's not something tangible yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a theory and something that you can feel, and it's like a disturbance in the force type deal. So as far as that's concerned, like, how would you attribute that feeling of, like, when you've had experiences with this, what do you sort of attribute it to? Like, what's your gut feeling? Like, what's going on in your mind? That type of thing.
Like, I there's two instances of deja vu, or whatever you want to call it, that I've had very early on. One was during a baseball game, a Little League baseball game I had. I had just stolen second base on a pitch that went behind the catcher, and I stole second to third, and, like, I slid head first, and as I was standing up from sliding to go stand on the base, the way that I turned with the same, like, exact frame of the catcher throwing the ball, and, like, the colors, and like the people sitting in the stands right there, like, I literally felt like I was like, I already lived that exact scenario. I mean, I played baseball for a really long time, so second to third a lot of times, never had that feeling. You know what I mean? It was just like,
it was like it had happened before, like you knew what was going to happen before it happened.
Yes, and like it was meant to happen.
But it was in the moment. Like, I've had the same sort of experiences that, like, it doesn't make sense till afterwards, but when it's happening, it's like, okay, he's going to throw it now. I'm going to touch the base now. This is how the guy's going to field the ball when I'm stealing the base. Like, all of that stuff sort of happens in the moment, but you don't realize it and sort of react to it until it's over.
Yeah. And then the second one that I had that wasn't, tell me if this does or doesn't. I don't know if this falls in the realm of deja vu, but it was a dream one. So I was with my parents. I was probably like 10 years old, and we're in London. Okay. And it's like yesterday, I can remember this. We're in London. We're at the Tower of London. And when one part of the tour, when you're in the Tower of London, they have, like, the armory, okay? And they also have, in the armory, they have the knights with the horses dressed up, okay? So they would have the knights in the armor, and the horses have, like, back in the day, like when they did the jousting and stuff, they had different colors on the horses and all that stuff.
Right. It was like the painted colors for, like, the royalty and that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, I remember, like, a distinct, like yellow and purple one, and, like, a red and white. And, like, I'd literally dreamt it the night before we went. That. Because I literally told my dad I had a dream about us, going to the tower, but I had never been there before. And then we go, and the way that I was looking and turned, it was exactly my dream, exactly down to what my parents were wearing and I was wearing. I mean, the colors on the horses, the armor that the knights had, and I've never been there. Never even saw pictures inside there. That exact moment, I had, like, almost that, like, same thing. The way I turned, everything was just, I was like, whoa.
I would say I would attribute that as deja vu. It's more of a premonition.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way, but it's still the same feeling. It's still the same effect, if that makes sense.
Which made me think at a very young age, was this predetermined that this moment of my life was going, like, am I exactly where I'm supposed to be?
Yeah, like, that's the thing, right? Is that, like, you felt like it had happened before, you'd been there before. Even if it was a dream, like, it still attributes to the same feeling, same kind of phenomenon.
Yeah, like,
Whereas you were able to
I'm
like
on
sort of
path.
like see the future type shit.
Kind of. A little bit, yeah. It was weird. Those are my two big ones. I've had deja vu a lot, but those are the two that like
That's
really...
that's like the pertinent ones, like the ones that stuck out in your mind that were like, holy shit, this is crazy type of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I guess tonight what we're talking about is it's not something that you have to necessarily believe in. Like I said, it's sort of there. It's sort of aching at you and you know it's there. But at the same time, it's also about perspective. So that sort of ties into the whole idea of the show in general, is that we're not trying to make you believe something just because we believe it, or that it's common knowledge, or that it's like a appropriated version of reality or what people believe and agree upon. It's more about how you think about it. Because we've all, if you haven't experienced deja vu, I'd have to believe that you're like, I don't know. I think everybody has experienced that feeling. They can't just put a name on it. Like you can call it whatever you want. Deja vu, reincarnation, intuition, whatever, but it's there.
Mm-hmm.
It's prominent. Everybody's experienced it. But what I wanted to get into is what we're actually talking about, like the idea of those two words, the Matrix. What does it actually mean? Because it's been thrown around a lot as far as being like a simulation. You're living in something that's not really going on. It's just something to sort of keep you tame and that kind of thing. That's where the control aspect comes in, which is really cool. And then the consciousness stuff that you're talking about, because technically speaking, when you're dreaming, you're still conscious. You're still sentient. You're just in sort of like a hybrid state of being conscious versus being like awake, if that makes sense. You're still awake to a certain degree. You can still sense what's going on, but you're sort of in that like hybrid state between reality and like a dream state. So that's interesting.
Yeah.
But I think we can both agree upon the fact that it's more of like a set structure of stuff going on that you don't have control over. Like it's something that's put in front of you that you don't necessarily have a handle on or are able to manipulate. It's just something that's happening that you're aware of. And then the other thing is that we live inside of a realm or a consciousness that I don't want to say can't see, like the five senses type of thing. Like we can smell it, we can taste it, we can touch it, all that, etc. But that could just be perception. It couldn't be reality. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes sense. Whenever I think of the Matrix, like people talk about like, oh, we're living in the Matrix, we're living in a simulation. I always think of the Matrix as like, we're living in essentially a computer program. That's how I interpret it when people say that, and obviously we're getting to this part of it later, but like, there's like a program, and when people start to get out of line, like things happen.
Yeah, there's like a glitch.
Yeah, which,
that's an interesting, I'm a big nerd for the movies. So like, I understand the movies, but I also understand the meaning behind the movies. There's a lot of philosophical stuff. And if you guys want to check out the movies, they're a really cool adaptation of what we're talking about. It's very sci-fi. It's very like science fiction, very like out there type of perspective. But it's an interesting way to think about it if you're a tech guy like me. Like when I see that kind of stuff, we're not far off of what those movies are portraying, like being able to jack into a computer system and being able to do basically whatever the hell you. But the cool thing about the movies is that it's still structured within a system of rules, regulations, how stuff works. Like I said, I keep referencing the movies, but there's another really cool quote that they're talking about the fact that like the main character, Neo, doesn't believe the fact that everything is going on in front of him. But it still is dependent on the rules of a computer system. Some of the rules can be bent, others can be broken, and you have to sort of figure out where that line sort of draws. Does that make sense? So that's the really cool aspect of the movies. If you wanted to see a really cool adaptation from a tech perspective on what we're talking about, it's not that far-fetched. That's all I'm going to say. But you don't have to believe in robots. You don't have to believe in the scientific belief. Essentially, what we're talking about is the feeling. So essentially what we're talking about is the same reality, same idea, but from a tech perspective versus just a regular humanistic, organic perspective. You're not putting anything crazy and out there or extrapolating the idea to a tech perspective. It's just sort of, it is what it is. But how do you, like you had mentioned the computer program stuff from a non-tech guy, somebody that doesn't work in tech. I mean, you work in sales tech, but the actual technical side where you're dealing with computers and AI and all that kind of stuff, with your knowledge of what you know about AI and what you know about like different computer systems and that kind of stuff, do you think that's plausible for it to be a computer system essentially, or do you think it's something more obscure?
I mean, I think essentially with how AI is, AI gets smarter, right? Like we've talked about that on our We literally did a whole podcast episode on AI.
Yeah, that I jonesed over. Yeah, thanks for reminding me.
No worries. Don't get too excited right now. So, like, it gets smarter, right? And eventually it figures it out that it's a computer, essentially. It figures it out. Like, what if that's us? Like, what if we're like in GTA?
Just
What
the
if,
with the NPCs walking around and all that kind of shit.
right, and like some of us have figured it out faster than others.
Is that
And
where?
like,
So I'm gonna throw an idea. At you. Is that where the idea of free will comes in?
could be,
Being able to do whatever you want because you're just an RPG character in a video game.
could be.
You're the main character of your own video game.
I mean, like we have choices, right? Because I know like choice is a big thing in the Matrix in the movies, right? The illusion of choice.
Yep.
Do you actually
It
have
actually
choice?
all starts off with the fact that he can either take the red or the blue pill.
Right.
Spoiler alert, he takes the red pill. It's the
Right.
whole point of the movie.
Right. So like do we really have choice though? Because here's the thing, Blake. You want to eat a hot dog, you got how many different brands of hot dogs out there? You have the choice, but you only have the choice of these.
Yeah.
Is it really freedom of choice or is it the illusion of freedom of choice? It's like your whole thing on which I agree with a lot of it when it comes to like politics and voting. Like, do we actually have a freedom or is it an illusion of freedom, an illusion of choice of voting?
Yeah. I mean,
like
that's an interesting point, and I think we can sort of, I mean, not to defer your point or like go off on a tangent or sort of generalize it, but you could say that you could point to the Matrix effect in pretty much any aspect of life.
100%.
I mean, you pigeonhole it towards politics, which is fine, but at the same time, you have the same effect with choosing your relationships, choosing your friendships, what school,
work,
university, what field you're going to get into in the workforce. Like, tech wasn't ever I mean, it was always something for me that was interesting, but I was a communication major. Like I wanted to get into radio broadcasting. Funny enough, we're doing a podcast, go figure, full circle. But tech was always sort of a part of my life. I still am to this day. Be 35 in March. I'm 34. I'm in my mid 30s. I still get a Jones out of technology and video games. Like I stream full time, not full time, but I stream when I can. Pretty. On a consistent schedule. Even though it's random times, I still do it almost probably every day, if not every other day. But it's always been sort of a passion of mine. Like I stream, I post content, I do all that kind of stuff. It was sort of always on my path. So like I said, it's sort of coming full circle in the fact that I always wanted to be a broadcasting personality. I always wanted to put opinions out there, that kind of thing. But I never saw it as like a profession, I guess. I always thought of it as something to do and like a hobby and something that I got, dopamine from and the dope hit and everything like that.
So what is it that you love about it? Like why?
The tech?
Like why? Yeah, like why tech? Like
just in tech in general, mainly computers, is because there's always something new. It's never the same job. So like every day it's a new experience.
Never stagnant.
No, I've never been the person that likes to sort of stay in one place. At least as I've matured and become an adult, I would say mid-20s to now, I've become much more like aware of what I'm after and what I want as far as stuff that interests me. Without getting too much into the weeds, a lot of my life was sort of pre-regimented when I was younger, as you all know.
Mm-hmm.
It was just sort of what I did. It was sort of robotic, funny enough. But now I feel like I have, the Neo effect. Like I've woken up, like everything makes sense type of thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So you've sort of found that in your life as well. I mean, we've had our trials and tribulations, but you seem to be more on the path now where you're happy. Things make sense.
Yeah. Well, I mean, growing up, I was told that I was going to follow in my father's footsteps and be a stockbroker. Literally, that's what I was told I was going to do, and that's what was the plan. So I was a business major at, when I was at Akron and business and finance, and like I was told this is what I was going to do. I was going to work with dad and whatever. And I did ironically end up working with dad, but I was in the operations side of it, not as a broker. And when I was interning with them, all the brokers that worked with my dad, they looked at me and they were like, "You're crazy for wanting to get into this business. Like, you're nuts." Like, with all the regulations and all these, they were like, 20, 30 years ago, this was a great business. Now it's not what it was. So between hearing them talk about it from that standpoint of like, what the fuck are you doing? And then like, it wasn't something that just I loved. And when like if I was doing something like I wanted to do something I loved, and ironically, I started coaching high school football while I was playing for the Predators at the time on the side. Uh, and then uh, once I had my career-ending injury, I ended up coaching and fell in love with coaching. And then I was like, I just looked into I could go to college, get my degree in sports management, and then I can, you know, maybe be a college coach or professional coach, work my way up there. And at first, my dad was like, dude, he was not on board. But like, a couple people in my life at the time kind of talked to my dad, and they're like, listen, he's passionate about this. Do you want him to love what he's doing, or do you want him to have a job that he hates and is miserable? So finally, my dad bought in, and then when I got the internship, and then eventually became a assistant coach at the college level, and was able to get my degree and coach college football for X amount of years. Uh, it kind of came full circle, kind of like you said, like, finally like doing what you love. And I felt like I broke away from that, like,
You glitched the matrix.
yeah, I broke away from that permanent path that I was on, and it's been great. Well, for the most part, it's been great. There's been some stuff, but overall, it's been good.
Yeah, so like I think we're sort of talking about the same thing, is that like it was one of those things where we saw the path ahead, we decided to take a left turn, and it worked out.
Yeah, because like ironically, listen to this. So I'm in tech sales now. Okay, so I'm in sales, which is essentially what a stockbroker is. You're in sales, right? So now I'm in sales, but I'm also still in athletics because it deals with IT software for athletic teams and organizations, and I'm still coaching. I'm like it's all three things. And
Yeah.
I've learned, sales through a couple other ventures that I did, and I can relate with people. I can't code for shit, so thank God I'm not trying to work on the actual like IT side of it, but I still have to do, I still got to use HubSpot, and I still got to use tech stuff, so it's cool. And we're using, I mean, dude, like HubSpot now uses AI. Like there's AI in that, there's AI in everything, so it's like it's getting smarter as it develops.
Yeah,
Like you
for
said,
sure.
it just constantly gets better. So
Yeah, so I think a good idea too is to like break down, because we've talked about a lot of different stuff, right? We've talked about, feeling of intuition, we've talked about premonitions, we've talked about, hindsight and all that kind of stuff from stuff that's happened to you or while it's happening to you and that kind of stuff. To sort of break it down, what we're actually talking about is that like reality feeling, scripted or optimized or artificial. Those are the three things that we can probably talk about, or at least touch upon, that sort of encompasses what we're talking about. So like you said with the whole base stealing thing, like that felt scripted.
yeah,
Like you knew what was happening, you knew how it was going to turn out, and that probably dictated how you responded in said situation.
right.
And that's, the common experiences, like I said, we've talked about the fact of deja vu. That's a big one. That's probably the most prominent one that people feel, or at least can attribute what they're feeling to, is that, hey, this has happened before. I sort of knew what was going to happen before it happened. That kind of thing. There's also like the time compression thing, like I said, with like, we talk about all the time, and it's common among people our age, is they're like, oh my God, the year went by so fast. And like how that happens year after year after year after year. Like it's hard to believe that you and I are in our mid 30s when not only 10 years ago we were in your basement playing, you know what I mean? Like it's wild to think how long ago that was.
It just keeps getting faster the older you get. It's crazy. Like I can't believe my daughter is 4. She's gonna be 5 in July. Like I still remember holding her in
I
one
remember
arm.
in the bassinet when you guys were still living in that apartment.
Yeah, dude.
Like it's hard to believe that she's gotten so big. Like
dude, her and I were looking at pictures the other day. And we watched videos and pictures of, my dad holding her for the first time and giving her a
Yeah.
kiss. My mom and Mike coming over. Dude, you had the bleach blonde hair.
Yep.
Like, we got
My
pictures of,
ombre
yeah,
silver hair.
yeah. And then, like, Cody holding her when she was a baby. And, like, you look at her now and, like, dude, she's 4, but she's tall as shit. She's in, like, the 97th percentile for height. She's smart, she's healthy, she's athletic, and she's, good at art and stuff. She's in pre-K. I can't believe it. So, yeah, it just goes faster and faster every year, and it's interesting because I forget where I read it from. Somebody was explaining that, and essentially, when you're born and you're younger, you don't have a lot of memories. You don't have a true concept of time. So that's why days and months and years seem so slow. But then the older you get, you have more memories. You have that concept of time. So then it moves faster. My uncle would, like, we got to get him on here because he has some fascinating discussion. Him and I have had some really good discussions, him and my father and I, about concept of time and all that stuff because he's into quantum theory and all that. And
Yeah, I think.
yeah.
But the other two things that sort of what you were talking about with the base running stuff was the algorithmic prediction.
Mm-hmm.
So essentially, you mapped it out in your head. You knew exactly what was going to happen, how it was going to happen, and then it happened.
Mm-hmm.
The other really cool thing that sort of ties into that is like the loss of the novelty. So like the loss of like the surprise of it happening.
No.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, so like what I'm getting at, sort of boil it down, is like, I know what was going to happen, so it wasn't a surprise.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's the other really cool thing about the effect in itself is that, like, when you have something happen, you're still surprised by it, but it doesn't surprise you as if it was, like, genuinely surprised. Like,
Yeah.
versus, well, I guess my point is like a surprise party. Right? If you don't genuinely know about what's going to happen, you're like, oh, fuck, this is all, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
versus knowing it's going to happen, and that sort of takes the luster out of it. Does that make sense? Like the diamond's not as shiny as if you were seeing it for the first time versus the second.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes sense. If you had this one happen, talking about, like, I guess, I don't know what this would fall under. I guess it would fall under, like, the robotic one, but, like, if you had where you drive home, like, you get off work, you drive home, and you get home, and you don't remember the fucking drive.
Oh yeah, I've had that before. I've had that happen, yeah.
Like, you're just on autopilot.
Or you're just
like,
zoned out because of music or a podcast or whatever.
Yeah.
By the way,
like
make sure everybody listens to our podcast on the way home from work.
Yes, please do. You're just in full, like, NPC mode. Like, you're just
100%. And it's not necessarily like music or anything like that. Sometimes it's just in your mind. Like you're just thinking about something or on like a certain tip or a mood or whatever. And yeah, I completely understand. Yeah, I completely get that.
Yeah. Yeah. You want to talk about weird? I know I talked about my head injury, my career-ending injury. I had severe head trauma. And you want to talk about autopilot mode? Like, this is how crazy the brain is. This is why, like, it would make sense if we are in a computer program. Because when I had the series of concussions and I had my last concussion, I completely blacked out. I don't remember playing my last game that I ever played, okay? I go in to watch film the next day after I got out of the hospital. I go into film and I'm watching film, and like, this is right before we had concussion protocol. This is like 2012, 2013, right before the NFL implemented the concussion protocol. So I had my concussion. They didn't take me out. I played the whole game. I just don't remember it. And I'm watching film.
You're talking about after the fact, though.
What do you mean?
Like when you were in it, you were probably cognizant of what was going on, but afterwards, you don't know. That's the thing.
I must have been.
Yeah, you don't know.
So I'm watching film, and I'm seeing like my number. Somebody's wearing my number out there. Looks like me. I'm one of 3 white dudes on the team.
Right.
Like, I knew it was me, but I'm like, I don't remember. Like, I asked them, I was like, Coach, who is that? They're like, that's you. I'm catching balls, blocking, I'm tackling, I'm doing shit. I'm like, that's not me. They're like, who the fuck else is it? That's you. They're like, you don't remember that? I'm like, no. I was like, I don't remember anything past like the first quarter. And that's when they had me go back to the hospital and run more tests and stuff. And like, yeah, but like, you want to talk about autopilot? It is crazy how the brain works, dude.
Well, that's also like, as much as you're talking about football, it's the same thing with like the zone type mentality.
Mm-hmm.
Like
You
things
can't
just
miss.
things are just clicking. Like things are just happening in the perfect time, the perfect scenario.
Yeah.
You just feel like you just, like you said, you're just on autopilot. Everything is just sort of snapping into place and making sense.
You can hit every three,
Yep.
every free throw.
Yep.
Like you
You
can
just
fucking,
enter that mindset where like all the inhibitions are like that whole inhibition type mentality comes in, like where you're not overthinking, you're just there. Things are just happening and you're reacting to them.
That's what like people think, like you're at a blackjack table and you're just feeling good, you're in a good mood, and you can't lose. A lot of people think that like luck is an algorithm.
Right.
It's luck and
That you
momentum
sort
is
of
an
tap
algorithm.
into it versus just being some sort of like a natural existential phenomenon, that type of shit.
Yeah. Have you ever felt that when you're playing at the table? Like you just can't fucking lose?
I mean, shit. I felt it 2 weekends ago.
I know.
I'm getting too much of that, but like I know exactly what you're talking about. Is that like you get into a mode where like you're not second guessing yourself. Everything sort of makes sense. You can sort of read the situation without thinking about it. All that kind of shit. I completely agree with you. I completely understand what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's just really interesting, like how all that works.
Yeah, but like
You
I
know?
think the coolest thing about, so like we're talking about like false reality and like false claims and that kind of thing. I know we were talking about that earlier. There's an interesting phenomena that I don't know if you guys are familiar with. It's called the Mandela Effect, and we want to sort of get into that as sort of like a side tangent as far as what we're talking about as part of like a false reality. I guess that's 2 words we could use to put on it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's probably a good one.
But anybody that's not familiar with what that is, I just want to give a quick little definition just so everybody has the context so we can sort of move forward with the conversation. So essentially what the Mandela Effect is that it basically describes a situation where a large group of people, a large populace, share the same false memory, and it's named after the common belief of Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. That's where it comes from, when he actually died a lot later. And it's attributed to human memory being fallible, information overload, and the internet spreading misinformation, creating false realities. That's where the entirety of the idea comes from. So there's a couple really cool ones that I saw that I want to sort of touch on that probably a lot of people aren't aware of. And I want you to sort of, you might have more than I do, but the one I thought was really cool that I sort of look back on, I never really had the Mandela Effect with this, was the Shazam one. I thought that was really interesting.
Kazam and Shazam.
So essentially, many people recall a movie with Shaquille O'Neal back in, I think it was the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a genie, and a lot of people attribute the name of the movie to Shazam. The name of the movie is actually Kazam.
Kazam.
Horrible movie. Don't ever let Shaq act again, please. But it was one of those things where like everybody shared the same belief and it's completely false.
Well, and they thought it was Sinbad.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yep,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
Yep.
They thought it was Sinbad that was in it.
But another really cool one, and I don't know if this one's true. I'd have to actually look up the pictures of the old logo to be totally sure. But there's apparently one of Fruit of the Loom.
Cornucopia.
The Cornucopia one.
I remember the Cornucopia.
So do I.
I fucking distinctly remember
so
the Cornucopia.
do
I didn't know. I knew what a Cornucopia was because of the Fruit of the Loom fucking logo.
There's that one. So essentially that one is the logo is widely remembered with the Cornucopia, but it's always just been fruit. It's always just been a plethora of fruits. So like that one, the other crazy one that I think is completely false, I'd have to listen to the song to be totally sure, is the We Are the Champions by Queen. Apparently the song just ends without him saying of the world. It's just We Are the Champions.
No, I distinctly remember him.
So that one might be false, but like it makes you think.
Dude, there's what's the other one? Oh my god, hold on. It's
the other one I know is false that they've either doctored or it's completely false is the Pikachu tail one. Have you heard that one?
No, I was going to say the mirror on the wall.
I have that one too. I was going to touch on that one too. The Pikachu one is wild.
All right, what's the Pikachu
The
one?
Pikachu one is, many remember Pikachu as having a black tip on his tail. It's always been yellow, completely yellow. That's not real. They've either doctored the image of Pikachu. That thing's never been yellow. Completely.
No, it's never been yellow.
Completely brick yellow. It's never been yellow.
So here's what's interesting. Okay, you want to get into like the meat and potatoes of our show and weird shit and conspiracy theories. There is a huge conspiracy theory that the Mandela Effect is actually an effect of the CIA and our government with time travel. And they did actual specific testing on populations where they change shit.
Yeah, like this is another crazy one. Fruit Loops, the cereal.
Shut the fuck up.
Many remember Fruit, Fruit, Fruit Loops, but the cereal has always been Froot Loops. No. Do you know how many bowls of Fruit Loops I've eaten in my life? There's no fucking way. I could go to a store right now and it says Fruit, Fruit Loops, period.
I don't think so.
There's no way.
Froot.
That's like the bargain Fruit Loops. That's like the shit you see in like the 5-pound bag at Costco.
No, that's that Save a Lot or whatever.
Yeah, and then the other crazy one, because I'm a big obviously like sci-fi fan. This is the other one I thought that was crazy. Is the famous quote from Star Wars is, "Luke, I am your father."
Mm-hmm.
Actual line is, I am your father. He never mentions Luke.
Yeah, I don't believe that one either.
Like, I'd have to watch like the 1970s version of Star Wars and then watch the new one. Like, I'd have to have an original copy of the 1970s VHS to make that plausible. There's no fucking way.
Well, here's my whole thing is like, if it's the one that they're saying it is, the Austin Powers joke doesn't make sense.
Which one are you talking about?
With Dr. Evil, when he's like, "Know this, Austin, I am your father."
Yeah.
That joke wouldn't make fucking sense then.
True. That's true.
So, I mean, unless now, that line conveniently isn't in Austin Powers, but the last time I watched it, it is, so.
Yeah, that's like what I'm talking about is you need like actual tangible proof of, like, I'd have to have the 1970s version and the other one and the current version side by side. Because the funny thing about the Luke one, the Star Wars one, they could doctor the audio, and because you never see Vader's face in that scene,
you wouldn't know.
You would know.
Yeah.
They could have recorded 2 different lines and just implemented the other one.
Or what you would need is you would need to go into the archives and find the script.
Yeah. The script, like the actual, well, even then, could they just have doctored the script?
I mean, they could doctor the script.
And put the original, let's say the original or the doctored, whichever one makes sense, towards the Mandela Effect, just put that one as the public version of the script.
Yeah, I mean...
You know what I mean? Like, you get down a real dark rabbit hole with some of this stuff with the Mandela Effect. You can get actually pretty crazy.
It can get crazy. Like, what do you think about...
Because, like, you with the Fruit of the Loom stuff, I'm telling you, I remember a fucking cornucopia on my underwear. I remember it. It's there.
Yes, absolutely. Tidy whities, bro.
It's just like...
had it on there.
The Fruit Loops one is wild to me. There's no fucking way it was Froot. I would have remembered that because it's so out of pocket.
That one, I don't know. I mean, I used to eat Fruit Loops a little bit, but I've never really been a big cereal person. And just to let everybody know, I am a psychopath and I eat cereal dry.
The Pikachu one to me is wild. Actually, matter of fact, I have a Pikachu plushie. Hold on a second. Hold on.
Is it yellow tail? Tell me it's an all yellow tail. Well, where's the tail? It's fucking yellow?
It's yellow.
Shut the fuck up.
There's no fucking... Hold on a second. Hold on, guys.
When did you get that goddamn plushie? How old is that?
I got it with you. I got it with you when I was visiting you.
Okay, so it was recently in the last 5 years.
Hold on a second. Wait. Let me look something up real quick.
You're going to look up the card, aren't you?
No, it's 100%.
Yeah. You're going to look up the fucking trading card. That's crazy. So, I mean, dude, all right. So, what do you think it is? Do you think it...
dude, it's a yellow tail.
Blake is having a full-on fucking...
It's a yellow
panic
tail!
attack right now.
on every single
That's
card.
crazy.
That's wild.
That's crazy. I distinctly remember a black tip on the tail.
That's insane.
There's no way. So do you think it's time travel? Do you
I
think
have
they're
to
fucking
listen to
with
the
us?
Queen. I have to.
Do you think it's time travel? Do you think they're fucking with us?
I don't know, man. I don't know why. I don't know.
Because, like, here's the thing. It's not just one person saying that this stuff is different. It's a lot of people having the same fucking memory. People that never talk to each other, that don't know each other. It's fucking wild.
Here's the wild. This is crazy. This is crazy too.
Which one?
The Monopoly guy.
Fucking Monopoly guy?
This is wild. Hold on.
What happened with the fucking Monopoly guy now?
There is a Mandela effect for the Monopoly guy. People remember rich Uncle Money Pennybags with a monocle. He's never had one.
Bullshit.
I just looked it up, dude. He doesn't have one in every single picture.
But Blake, in Ace Ventura, they give the guy a fucking monocle.
But maybe that's the plant. I just looked up on Google every single picture of the Monopoly guy. You know who does have a monocle? Mr. fucking Peanut.
Yeah, Mr. Peanut. Ooh, okay.
The Monopoly guy does not have one.
I don't trust Google, though.
But that's my point.
Google. I don't trust Google.
That's the point of the whole effect is that, like, I don't know, bro. That's kind of crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy.
Like that, I don't know, bro. Like that's wild. That, like, those couple instances, I actually looked it up, but like the verify, like I agree with you. Maybe that's not the best thing to look up, but like every single picture I've seen of those three that we talked, now I have to listen to We Are the Champions again.
All right, dude. Hey, try this. Go on DuckDuckGo, because that one's way less filtered than Google. So if you go on DuckDuckGo, that might bring up something different, because maybe Google's playing into the whole Mandela effect.
Yeah, let
me look. Like, I don't know, but I remember hearing when I was younger that Nelson Mandela was dead, and then like I remember later on somebody mentioning him, and I was like, oh yeah, he passed away, and they're like, what are you talking about? No, he didn't. What?
So yes,
like that was
on
crazy.
DuckDuckGo there is a monocle.
Yeah,
for a couple of pictures, not all of them, but like I would say 10-15% of the pictures has him with a monocle.
Supposedly,
but some of these are from like a doctored website where you can like make a picture.
Yeah.
So I don't know, dude.
I know somebody recently, I just saw this. I might have even fucking sent it to you and a couple of the other guys. Somebody recently found in the, like, at the headquarters of Fruit of the Loom, they found the logo with the cornucopia.
Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
I think some
like
of these...
I said, the real tangible proof is if I jump on Spotify right now, like I said, our podcast is available on Spotify. Make sure you go follow.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, I have to listen to the song.
But again. Even then, they could change that
100%, because they have the masters and all that kind of stuff. 100%.
They could definitely do it. They could definitely change that shit if they wanted to.
But that's like those three instances: the Pikachu thing, the Monopoly guy, and that cornucopia is going to drive me nuts. There's no way that thing does not have a cornucopia. I need to, dude. There's no way I have underwear from when I was a kid. That would be kind of gross.
Yeah, it definitely would.
But yeah,
there's another one too.
Actually, I'll check it after this podcast. I think I have a pair of Fruit of the Looms in my bedroom.
How about the number one is the Berenstain Bears?
Yeah, I saw that one as well. Yep.
It's always been Berenstain.
Yep. The other crazy one I saw too was the Stouffer's stovetop. Did you see that one?
No.
People remember Stouffer's making stovetop stuffing. It's always been Kraft. Stouffer's never made a stovetop stuffing. I don't know if I believe that one. I don't believe that, and I don't think Kraft fucking makes it. Top Stove fucking makes it. Yeah, some of these are a little far fetched for sure.
I guess Hannibal Lecter. Hello Clarice or Clarice. Hannibal Lecter never says this in Silence of the Lambs. He says good morning. I have to watch it again. And I haven't seen Silence of the Lambs in a while, but I'd have to look at it. But that's Mickey Mouse.
That's the difference between, like, because you'll actually see Anthony Hopkins' mouth move. So you can differentiate that one. Unless Unless they shot
They
the
use
same scene
AI?
twice. No, they shot the same scene twice.
Oh, I'm sure they did X amount of takes.
But you get what I'm
That would
saying? Like that would
explain.
that would be the only explanation for those two in particular. But the Darth Vader thing's a lot more difficult because you never see his face when he says it.
Mickey Mouse suspenders. People remember him wearing them in Steamboat Willie, but he doesn't. I remember suspenders.
I remember suspenders. Actually, no, wait.
Because he goes like
that
this.
was like a very early cartoon. That might have been before he had suspenders. That might have just been his chest. It might have been.
But doesn't he go like this? He like rubs his thumbs down the line.
See, I'd have to all this stuff. I'd have to rewatch
he's
it.
Like
I'd have to rewatch it to be totally sure.
The Kit Kat hyphen. People remember Kit Kat with a hyphen, but the brand has always been Kit Kat with no hyphen.
Again, I don't think that's true.
I don't think it's true either.
A lot of these like that's the thing though, is that like it makes you think.
This is the AI overview, man.
But yeah, it makes you think about it. It makes you sort of second guess yourself, and that's the whole point. But the next one, I know we said we were going to sort of get into two schools of thought, and I want to sort of jump into that.
Okay.
One of the main ones we wanted to get into was, you followed him a lot more than I have. I just know of reference based on, you said he was into the whole Anunnaki thing, which we've also done an episode on.
Mm-hmm.
And he has a lot of different perspectives on a lot of things, and he sort of played his card into this one that we're talking about. And it's I'm probably going to butcher his first name, but probably not the last name. I think it's Michio.
Something like that.
Michio Kaku.
Michio, yeah, something like that.
And his sort of all-encompassing view is a lot more grounded than the other person we're going to talk about. It's more grounded in physics and like the physical side of things and that kind of thing. So his whole worldview, sort of simplified and broken down into 2 points, is essentially reality is governed by discoverable laws. So essentially there's a reason for everything that happens, no matter what it is. And the second one is that the consciousness of what we're experiencing and our perspective emerges from physical systems rather than like the ether or like the spirituality stuff we were talking about at the beginning of the episode. And the key ideas that he sort of brings to the table for those 2 points of view is the universe may behave like a computation, but that doesn't mean it's like literally artificial. So with those 2 points and sort of his worldview, do you agree with that? And I'll sort of give my point of view as well. Do you agree with that? Do you think that's too physical? Do you think there's like an otherworldly type of perspective that could be taken into account? Like I said, we're going to talk about somebody else here in a little bit. But just with that perspective, do you agree with that? Do you think that's plausible? Do you think that's something that is factual? Or do you sort of want to sort of see what the other side holds too? Where do you stand?
I think that it does explain. I think he does do a good job of explaining, like with string theory and theoretical physics. Like I think he does a good job of explaining this stuff for like we talked about earlier, like the tangible, like physical aspects of it, and especially with like the mathematics. But again, I don't think that's the only explanation, I guess. Does that make sense? Yeah, I mean, I think he's got some really good theories. I think his concept overall is pretty solid. I mean, he believes in the God particle, which we could do a whole episode on that. But, in order to really like deep dive into it, it would take us a whole nother episode to like go into like his whole thing. But I mean, I guess to answer your question, yeah, I did partially, yes. Sorry.
Oh, you're good. So essentially you think it's a piece, not the whole.
Mm-hmm. I think it's a piece. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I'm sort of with you on that. As I've stated earlier in earlier episodes that I'm more of an agnostic type of fundamental idea when it comes to all of that kind of stuff. Like I sort of take stuff as it comes and rely a lot on tangible proof. Other people might not share that view. That's just me personally. I like a lot of physicalness to what's being presented to me. I like to have tangible proof, something I could touch, smell, taste, feel, see, that kind of shit. That's just me. But at the same time, if we're talking about the Matrix as a whole and as an effect and as a phenomena, that could be a plant, right?
It could be a plant.
It could be my senses interpreting what is real just based on my senses.
Mm-hmm.
So I understand that, but at the same time, I read into because the agnostic view essentially is, this is my own interpretation of what agnosticism is and of what I believe personally. is that you're not necessarily non-religious or sacrilegious, but you sort of interpret the world as a construct. It is something, like I said, your five senses are a big component of that, but you understand that some things are outside your control. You can attribute that to God, you can attribute that to monotheism, polytheism, whatever you want.
Another dimension that we
whatever. Like you could take it
yeah.
scientifically, you could take it religiously, you could take it however you want. But some things that you experience don't have to do with you in singularity. There is an outside, let's call it a force to be PC, okay? There is something outside your control that is dictating things that happen to you or happen through you, about you, with the people around you, life in general. That's essentially what my worldview is as far as agnosticism, is that I don't know what I don't know, and I'm not trying to necessarily figure it out as an end-all be-all resolution to whatever. Does that make sense?
Do you think some people can tap into that algorithm or that energy force or whatever? Do you think some people can actually, like, they have figured out how to tap into that?
I mean, we talked about the Nikola Tesla stuff. Like, we did an episode on that.
Right.
Was he on some other shit? If we want to make it crazy, like if we want to make it like, was he tapped into another frequency? Like I said on the other episode, he was tapped into another frequency. Me being a tech guy, that's just how I attribute what was going on with him.
Yeah. Here's I guess.
And from just before you make your point, from a religious standpoint, was that divine intervention? Do you get what I'm saying? You can see it from both sides of the coin. One makes sense, the other one is not necessarily not making sense. It's about your perspective.
People tend to, there's a line, right? And people either, for the most part, I think, are either choose one side or the other when it comes to this type of stuff with religion and science. And for me, I always ask the question, why can't they both go hand in hand together? Why can't religion and science be intertwined?
Well, not only, I would say 50 to 100 years ago, that was not a thing. They were completely separate. You know, right. I keep going back to old episodes, but we talked about the Illuminati. Like, the Illuminati were essentially exactly what I'm talking about. They were free thinkers when they started. When the initial sect of the Illuminati started, they were free thinkers that didn't necessarily reject religion. They said, hey, this is a different way to think about shit. What's wrong with that? Why can't we? But it's exactly what you're talking about, is that why can't we have a differencing of opinion in it and we both exist? What's the problem with that? I don't understand.
And also, what if people say, you know, like the God created, you know, the universe in one day and like all that stuff. Like, okay, what if God created it, but also created the physics and created the all the stuff? You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
Like, what if God is quote unquote the what's the dude called, the creator or whatever in the Matrix?
The architect.
What's he called? The architect. What if God is the architect?
Yeah. That's, if you want to talk about a mind-blowing scene in those movies, if you watch that interaction between Neo and the architect,
I was watching a little bit of it.
You get an idea of, like, he's trying to, like, the architect, if I'm saying he, is trying to basically make Neo wrap his head around the fact that it was constructed because people that were unplugged, quote unquote unplugged, would experience a reality that they weren't ready for. So what happened is they put them in the Matrix because that was the best way to keep them from destroying themselves over the truth that they were going to learn once they were unplugged. Because as they stated in the movie, it's kind of an undertone. In the entirety of the trilogy, essentially what's going on is that if people not everybody's ready for it. So essentially, once they figure out the truth of what's really going on, they will implode because so many people are reliant on the way things are going and things are going well and they have a beat on things. If you flip that script, people will literally eat themselves from the inside out. That's the whole premise of the movie, is that they speak to it in the movie, is that they're talking about, like, Morpheus says, most of these people aren't ready to be unplugged. They're not ready for it, because once they do, they're so dependent on what's going on in their ordinary life, quote unquote ordinary life. They're so reliant on that system that they will fight, literally tooth and nail, to their death to fight for it and preserve it, because it's the norm. It's what they're comfortable with.
Is that why we still haven't had disclosure?
B.
Because we're not ready?
Is that there are certain people, due to the premise of the movies, that are ready for this reality. There are plenty of people that aren't.
They just
And
want
that's...
to
They want to
live in their bubble.
Let's not say
live in their
through
bubble.
life, but they're comfortable with the scenario that has been presented in front of them, how the world works, what their point of view is, how they get up in the morning, they have a routine that works for them. All of that stuff comes into effect and comes into that bubble that you're talking about. But do they continue that routine throughout the entirety of their life, or do they make changes based on what's presented in front of them at said time? The whole premise of the movie is that we're getting rid of this illusion that people are living under, because it's not the way the world works. That's not what has happened. You have been brought into this dream world, as they call it, because you're not ready for the truth. Let's put the truth up on a pedestal. What is the truth? That's the real question, is that, are we just living something that's a complete fallacy and we don't know what the truth is because, one, we're not ready for it, and two, it would literally blow your mind if you knew it. Your mind would explode because you can't process it. That's the real cool thing about the movies and what we're talking about, is that, like, I'm telling you guys, like, I'm a big tech guy, but if you look at what the premise of the movies are, if you watch the movies, you don't even have to watch all three. If you watch the first one, because it's the best one out of the three, obviously, because it's the original, it really throws you for a loop. If you're a tech guy and somebody that's interested in technology, what they're talking about, jacking into this world and being able to replicate weapons and literally throwing yourself and jacking in and being able to learn a martial art in 30 seconds, that's not far-fetched as far as like the next 20, 30 years.
No, that's like
literally putting a computer jack into your brain and uploading stuff to your cortex or whatever is involved in learning a specific skill or whatever. We're already doing that.
That's literally Neuralink that Elon Musk is doing.
Exactly. So 20 years ago, they were predicting the future. So it's like I said, if you guys watch any of them, watch the first one, because not only is it Keanu Reeves' absolute peak as an actor, but like it brings up a lot of really cool, really, really pressing questions. It's really a phenomenal movie. I can't say enough about it. But like I said, we talked about the Michio Kaku stuff, and what I want to get into is the flip side of more of like I guess a more otherworldly, more
pseudoscience.
Yeah, like a pseudoscience ethereal view. And then we're talking about, on that flip side, we're talking about the Billy Carson stuff. And his sort of stuff is more, I guess, objectively, it's more speculative. It's not as finite as the Kaku stuff. It's not grounded in, let's call, reality. Reality is going to be like a big air quote for this episode, because we keep harping on the fact that, like, it could be fake, it could be all that stuff. But essentially, from a speculative point of view, it's still interesting. And his worldview, counteracting the Kaku stuff, is the consciousness is the fundamental aspect of all human existence. So essentially, we're born with consciousness, and that sort of shapes our reality. We're able to sort of make up our own mind, and we have the free will stuff and all that kind of shit. But the cool thing about the flip side of that one is that not only is it fundamental, but then you have like ancient religions, or not ancient religions, ancient civilizations that understood reality differently. So then we get into the whole stuff about, you were talking about time travel. You were talking about, like, I know we talked about previous episodes, like the Mayans and all that kind of stuff, about them being in tune with like the sacrificial stuff, where they were like sacrificing stuff to the gods. And then you get into the whole polytheistic stuff with the Greeks and the Romans and all that kind of stuff. Exactly. So that, from a religious perspective, is also really interesting, because you're dealing with otherworldly entities. So you're not dealing in the physical realm, you're doing more of the ethereal type stuff. So I know you're more in tune with that, because I know you have a big Jones. You have a huge Jones for like Egyptian culture and like Egyptian theology and all that kind of stuff. So I want to give you sort of the floor and sort of talk about that whole, aspect, because like I said, I'm sort of more grounded in the Kaku stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I want to hear your side of things from the Billy Carson thing about like the reality and that whole polytheistic type of scenario. So I'm gonna let you have the floor.
Yeah, so what he does is he has studied a bunch of ancient civilizations and their religions and their ancient texts, biblical manuscripts. Something that is really interesting that everybody should look into is the Emerald Tablets. Should definitely look into that. Also, this is something that were you ever a part of, you had to have been at some point. Were you ever a part of any of the discussions with Dad? And he would talk about the Gnostic Gospels.
Vaguely, I sort
And
of remember what you're
the
talking
Gnostic.
about, but
Do you remember the amulets that he had? Do you remember it had
vaguely,
like the lion with the snake head and like they're
yeah,
basically magical
vaguely, but
amulets?
I
Okay.
sort of remember what you're talking about. Yeah.
So this stems from that stuff. And it was very cool growing up being his son, because when we would have these talks like you and I are having right now, these talks would last like 4 to 5 hours, because Dad, he would go and actually grab the tangible shit to show us. So anyway, Billy has studied these ancient texts and these ancient scrolls, and basically the Anunnaki came here and basically created us. We're a lab experiment. They genetically modified our DNA code.
So you're getting
Which
into
is
RNA versus DNA and all that kind of stuff.
like all that stuff. I think we've talked about it briefly on here before when we did the Anunnaki episode. But like, if they did that, then is it still like a computer generated thing, or is it more of, I don't know. Like, could they go in and by modifying our DNA shut off some of our ancient memories?
Yeah,
As far as
it's
like,
a good,
like
it's a good notion.
if they could do that, I don't know.
But essentially, I mean, if you want to get into the computer aspect, since you touched on it, are we talking about conditional programming?
Could be.
Like, are we talking about programming someone's brain so they only see what we want them to see? Even if you have the idea of free will, are we being conditioned to see something a certain way because of the conditional programming? Does that make? Do you get what I'm going? You see where I'm going with that?
Oh yeah.
So
I
I mean, it all sort of encompasses the same thing, is that we're talking about whether it's physical programming or it's spiritual programming, we're talking about the same thing. It's conditionally programming. Like, it's based on what they want us to do. That's what we see.
Yeah. And then you got the awakening response, which is the ridicule and the suppression.
Well, that was the other thing too, is that that was one of the core ideas that I wanted to touch on, that he was, that he's known for, is that like the knowledge suppression versus the lost knowledge. So is the knowledge there and they're just suppressing it? Because it's not something, like, it all comes back to the fact that we're not ready for the knowledge, right? Like, that's my main contention with this whole shit, is that, like, and I've said it in previous episodes, I said it with the AI episode and a couple other ones, is that, like, we are being told something that we take as truth. Because I actually saw something else in one of the documentaries I watched when we were doing the research for the episode, is that, like, the Webster's dictionary, and I'm actually going to pull it up because I want to give, like, the actual Webster's definition.
Yeah.
Of what truth actually means according to Merriam-Webster. And what they said was really interesting if you actually look at it. So the truth definition by Webster, and I'll read, they have a bunch of, segments as far as what that could mean, as far as what truth is adjective and all that kind of stuff. So the first definition is the body of real things, events, and facts. Second one is the state of being the case, a transcendent fundamental or spiritual reality, or a judgment, proposition, or idea that is true or accepted as true. The accepted kind of caught my eye with that one.
Mm-hmm.
Because if we're talking about the Mandela Effect, it's accepted as truth, so therefore it's true. So I would have to look at, like, I think I still have my binder of Pokemon cards from, like, the early 2000s and 80s when I was still collecting them. I'd have to take a real hard look at one of those cards to be, you know what I mean? Because if it's been doctored and I go out to my car right now and look at a picture of Pikachu on a Pokemon card and it's black on the tip of his tail, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
Like, it's just crazy. Like, the Shazam one and Kazam one I knew about. That one's pretty well known. Like, that one's sort of like that one's sort of a moniker of the effect. But the monocle one for the Monopoly guy, there's a couple ones that sort of threw me. But I like that we were talking about the suppression stuff, because that's essentially what we're talking about with all of those examples. Is it something that was just lost in time that everybody forgot about, and then they doctored the photos of what was really supposed to be conditioned into our brains via the Matrix, and that's what we see now, and that's what we accept as true? You can make your own interpretation about that, but it is the question, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, look at like, you know, some of the UFO stuff, and then like with JFK, when people started taking the mask off and questioning it and saying no, like he got shot in the head, what did the Warren Commission do?
Yeah, they covered everything up.
You're a conspiracy
doctored photos or doctored his actual autopsy or whatever you want. You know what I mean? There were multiple examples of that, 100%.
They coined the term conspiracy theory because of the JFK assassination to try to make anybody who questioned them look like a kook. Is that the same thing?
Again, is it a plan?
Right.
To condition you to a reality and a truth that they want to project. It's crazy. Like, you could literally go down like I said, we're doing a whole episode on this, but this could actually, with all the examples that we've had over the episode so far, they could get really crazy.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think where the Carson and the Kaku thing is cool, we were talking about how they sort of overlap earlier in the episode towards the beginning. Despite the differences, there's sort of three core contentions that I sort of saw within their view and sort of how they sort of interpret the Matrix and what it actually encompasses. And it was that reality has a structure. Mm-hmm. There is something that is driving what we interpret with our five senses, because that's really the only humanistic way other than spirituality. That's the five ways that we interpret what is real. That is just a fact of humankind. The other one was humans perceive only a slice of, like, you're just living your life. I don't have insight into what you're thinking other than what you say to me, because I can't read your mind. You could be telling me something completely false, and I take it as truth because I've known you for 20. You sort of get where I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
Like, the entirety of a relationship can be a complete fallacy just because you believe the person because of X, Y, and Z. You've known them for however, you're in a romantic relationship, you've had children, all that kind of stuff. You get what I'm saying? Does that make sense?
Yeah. So here's one. You took psychology, right?
Yeah, I took some intro courses, but I wouldn't say I'm an expert. Not 100% not an expert.
But you took intro to psych, right? Okay. There's psych, and then what's the other one? Whatever. So I'm pretty sure it was psych when we Dad always talked about this and my uncle and stuff, so I knew about it before intro to psych. But you've heard of Schrodinger's cat, right?
I've heard of the name. I don't know about what you're talking about. I don't know about what you're talking about now.
So Schrodinger's cat is essentially, there's a box, and Schrodinger's, I don't want to fuck this up, but I'll look this up while I'm saying it. Like, Schrodinger's cat is basically, Sky Schroeder has a box, and he tells everybody that there's a cat in the box. Is it alive or is it dead? And his answer was, well, it's both, because it's not until you open that box and see it, whether it's alive or dead, until it's realized it is both.
Perspective.
Yes, absolutely.
And it's also, you can even make the argument that's conditional programming, because of the fact that, again, you would have to rely, at least as a human being, based on what we just talked about, your five senses. Can you hear it? Is it meowing? Can you smell it?
Mm-hmm.
You know, can you... those would be like the only two, especially if it's in a box. And was the box covered?
So here it is.
The box was covered, right?
It's a famous thought experiment illustrating quantum superposition, where a cat in a sealed box linked to a random quantum event like a decaying atom is considered both alive and dead simultaneously until the box is opened and observed, revealing its definite state. Proposed by Erwin Schrödinger in 1935, it highlights the absurd idea of macroscopic objects existing in multiple states at once, questioning the transition from quantum weirdness to everyday reality.
So that's my point, right? Is that you don't know whether or not it is or it isn't until you pull the top off.
Therefore, it's both. It's existing in two states.
So time travel, alternate realities, where one reality it's dead, the other one it's alive, depending on whether or not you open the box.
One universe it's dead, and in one universe it's alive.
Pretty cool theory.
Yeah.
But I think since we're getting back to the Kaku and Carson thing, I think it's cool to sort of boil it down to sort of a couple words for each one. And in that, like, science would call it limited perception, which is what you're talking about with the Schrodinger cat thing. And then you have Carson on the other side talking about consciousness constraint. Are we only seeing what's available to us because it's available to us and everything else is restricted?
Yeah.
It's interesting.
It is interesting. I mean,
and either side of the spectrum could be right. That's where it gets really crazy. Is either one, it's the same thing. That experiment alone is encompassing both scenarios. It's the same thing as those two guys is what they're saying, but it's one experiment. So it could be either or.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Yeah. And then, like, with consciousness, you've heard of astral projection, right?
Oh, yeah, 100%. Yep.
That could be breaking away.
Yeah, again, it could be the glitch. Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, but if you look at it from both sides, I mean, depending on where you sit, they both make sense. It's again, as we talked about in the beginning, it's about perspective. That whole experiment is about perspective.
Yeah.
Do you believe it's dead because you can't see it and it's not making any noise, or is making noise? I mean, shit, it could be a tape recorder of a cat meowing. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, it could be a literal lone tape recorder in the box, sealed, with a cat making natural cat noises. And you would believe it to be true.
To you, that cat's alive.
Because you can't see it. That was the other really cool thing, is I saw in this sort of, we'll sort of wrap up here in a second, but the other crazy one is, I know you talked about intro to psychology and philosophy and all that kind of stuff. I took an intro course to philosophy, and they talked a lot about Socrates and Plato and Aristotle and all that kind of stuff. Do you know where I'm going with this?
Yeah. Go ahead, yeah.
The cave thing? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Maybe.
This will blow your mind. So there was a philosophy from, I'm going to butcher it. I want to make sure I don't butcher who came up with it. But there is a philosophy by one of those three about a cave, and essentially what happens in the cave is that there are people or human beings chained up on a cliff wall, and behind them there's a flame, so a light source. And the people that are chained up, there are individuals between them and the light source. So there's an intermediary between that whole scenario. So those people behind the prisoners in front of the light source are projecting images on the face of the cave that the prisoners can see. That is their only reality. That is all they've ever seen. That's all they ever will see. The crazy part is, and this is where it ties into the Matrix, this is where it goes down the rabbit hole, as they like to say in the movies. One of them breaks free and is able to actually go outside and see what the real world is like. Do you see where I'm going? When that happens, he comes back and tells them all the shit he saw outside the cave. Imagine being the person chained up in front of the light source that's only seen figments on a wall. The person coming back says, dude, that's not real. What I just saw was real.
Yeah.
Like, it's a wild philosophy. And like I said, I want to be able to
and then
it was Plato. It's called The Allegory of the Cave. So essentially, it's Plato's allegory of the cave from his book, The Republic, describes prisoners chained in a cave, only able to see shadows on a wall, which they mistake for reality. It illustrates the effect of education, where a freed prisoner who sees the outside world, quote unquote, true reality, returns to enlighten others, but is met with resistance because the others prefer their familiar, shadowy world. The allegory explores themes of knowledge versus ignorance, appearance versus reality, and the philosopher's journey to enlightenment, with the sun representing the ultimate form of the good. It's if it actually has the allegory explained, like, this is just something I Googled real quick, but
yeah,
if you read the text in its entirety, this is sort of a synopsis of the entire thing, but that's why the Matrix films are so cool, because they literally play off of that narrative. Neo is the prisoner that broke free, that's trying to free everybody and tell everybody the truth. And everybody that's not unplugged yet is fighting that narrative, because it comes back to the conversation we were having earlier, is that they're going to reject a reality that doesn't fit their narrative because they're comfortable. Life's going how they planned. Everything's going according to plan and all that stuff. It's really interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting.
But if you guys haven't read up on that, if you guys haven't read anything of like the Plato, Socrates, Aristotle stuff, it will literally blow your mind. It's actually crazy, some of the stuff that they've come up with, and and you talked about the fact that, like we were talking about earlier too, about like tapping into different frequencies and the Nikola Tesla stuff and all that kind of shit.
Mm-hmm.
That's the idea.
Yeah.
They've seen how the world really is and what it could be and all that stuff. And everybody else is blind to the to the pictures on the wall. It's crazy. It really gets crazy. But the last thing, a couple things we'll get into over the last couple of minutes that we have the episode for, like, no matter sort of where you stand, if you stand more with the Carson stuff or the Kaku stuff, it comes down to the exact same question, is how much of reality are we really aware of? I want to hear your thoughts on that, because I've talked for a little bit and I want to make sure that, like, the allegory of the cave stuff, the different things of opinion, where do you sort of sit? Do you sit more with the Kaku stuff or the Carson stuff after we've talked about it? Where do you sort of stand?
I think that, obviously, I think reality is real, but I also do think that you can control your reality to an extent. You know, we were talking earlier off there with one of our friends about, you know, positive mindset and what that
That
can
was
do
Brendan.
for
He
you.
was on the Cryptic episode.
Yeah, and that too, with Brennan with that. I mean, you know, we only I think we only use like 10% of our brain. We still don't fully understand the function of that. You want to get into the matrix, and then you want to talk about like Billy Carson's theory with, you know, the Anunnaki essentially going in and changing our DNA and putting literal, like, cauterizing the DNA particles so that way it shuts off some of our function. Why do we have a brain that we're only able to access that 10%?
Well, you want to know something crazy that I saw really recently within like the last month?
What?
That 10% stuff is bullshit.
Okay, elaborate.
It's a Mandela effect. It's
Really?
not true. It's not true. We use all of our brain. Where it gets weird is the suppression stuff we were talking about earlier.
Yeah. So
The
elaborate on that.
The media, social media,
Okay.
what we're presented, comes back to the conditional programming.
Yeah, but I've seen like actual documentaries from like
But again, Dan.
universities.
But
and
again, Dan, is it a plant
I
to
don't know.
keep us from using all of it? I'm not saying.
I mean,
what I'm
okay,
saying,
I get what
but
you're
what
saying.
I'm saying, to boil it down, that's a little bit of a rabbit hole.
Okay.
But it comes back to the maybe the 10% is what we're conditioned to use based on what we see.
Okay, I get
Does that make sense?
That makes sense. So
if you look at it from a generalistic perspective,
yeah,
media control, social media control, what we see on TV, what we see in movies, what we see in pop culture, what we see in magazines, everything.
It dumbs us down.
100%.
Okay. I get what you're saying.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I like what Carson's saying is that they manipulated the DNA so that way there is an actual physical limit
100%
to it, when previously we were able to access the 100%, which, like, going back to some of our previous...
Let me ask you a very bare bones question.
Okay.
You think Nikola Tesla was only using 10% of his brain?
Fuck no.
Let's be honest here. Let's call a spade a spade.
Leonardo da Vinci wasn't using 10% of his fucking brain.
But do you see my point?
No, yeah, I totally get what you're saying. So, like, some people have been able to access it, like Carl Jung, the sleeping prophet.
You can talk about any single person that's either manipulated...
I'm sorry, no. Edgar Cayce was a sleeping prophet.
Yeah, like, that's what I'm talking about when tapping into a different frequency. Everybody else is hearing Queen. He's hearing AC/DC. It's completely different. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does make sense. But, like, so what I was saying was, you know, I think that some people, like Tesla, like Da Vinci, like some of these great minds, they were able to block out the naysayers. Because here's like talking about being conditioned. When I have a 4-year-old daughter, okay, she has a fucking amazing imagination. I had an amazing imagination when I was a kid. As you get older, you're taught to suppress imagination.
Go with the flow.
Don't be creative. Don't question things. J.K. Rowling creating Harry Potter and Tolkien creating Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia and like all these great adventures and stories come from our imagination.
100%.
But what if the imagination is actually real? Okay, that's reality. And then we're taught to suppress those realities because we're not meant to. They don't want us to have that creative thought, to open those worlds. And then people, you know, when you break away and you start doing meditation and you start, you know, doing stuff that, you know, your chakras and your third eye and you know, being able to access that part, it opens up and you break through that wall. But
Glitch.
everything's gonna fight you.
It's the glitch.
People are gonna fight you. You might start to get sick. You might get a bad headache because that's all the default systems targeting you, saying no, you can't access this.
System failure.
System failure. Yeah, but some people push through.
Do you see where it gets really murky?
Yeah.
Like if you really analyze it, it's all just plants to make you believe something that you think is real, but it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy. But the control thing essentially feels like we talked about the whole free will aspect, right?
Mm-hmm.
So like essentially we have the illusion of free will, and that's where it gets crazy. Just like we were talking about it, we sort of went down that rabbit hole. Like it doesn't feel like force, it just sort of feels like something, like I said, a disturbance in the force. You don't really pay attention to it, but it's there. And it can almost be described as like convenience. Like you have tapped into this thing that allows you to be ahead of what's going on, but then it's gone. Was the Teslas, the Aristotles, the Da Vinci's, did that convenience just never go away? Like, was it just there and that's what they operated under? And that's why everybody thought they were out there and nuts and wild, and this is never going to, like, because they were all preconditioned beforehand. Like, it's insane. But like, and then you get into the whole sort of stuff we were talking about with the algorithmic stuff, like shaping your behavior, like it's all a mathematical equation and it's got to have a definitive end. When you have people like Tesla and Aristotle and Socrates and Plato rewriting the equation, saying 2 + 2 actually equals 5 instead of 4, like, is your attention so warped that you don't pay attention? Like, mathematics was governed by human beings. Who's to say that mathematics are just fundamentally wrong? Like, again, it's an agreed upon truth based on X, Y, and Z. Could it just be all a fabrication and that's what we're led to believe because it makes sense? Quote unquote makes sense?
Well, what's interesting when you get into mathematics and numbers is our DNA looks just like code. Looks like computer code. That's really interesting when you get into that aspect of it.
Yeah, the
ones and zeros.
The crazy thing is from a tech perspective, the most powerful systems, they don't feel like cages. You manipulate the system based on what you need it to do. But again, like I said earlier with the quote from the Matrix movies, is that there are rules that you can bend, there's some that you can break. What if they just broke the code, right? That's like the whole idea of the entire episode, is that like, what if the Matrix just needs something to break the cycle? And that's what we see in the deja vu. That's what we see in the, you know, all of that stuff that feels like it's happened before, because you're breaking through the conditional programming that's been implanted.
Yeah.
It's wild. It really makes you think. It really does make you think. But
yeah, absolutely.
To ground sort of the episode based on what we were talking about through the entirety that we've had the episode on for, there comes a question between, are you questioning reality or is it getting to a point where it's unhealthy? Like, do you get to the point where everything is fake and you're just completely fixing everything? Or is there a happy medium? Where do you stand on that question?
Well, that can be dangerous. That you can get into, I mean, why even put forth effort at work? Why do anything then? I think, I will say this, I mean, going down the rabbit holes that I've gone down, especially with like a lot of the like the Kennedy assassination, and like some of the government black projects and like CIA shit, where like we've just been lied to. One we haven't done yet is 9/11, which that'd be a crazy episode to do because so much shit has come out on that. When you start going down these rabbit holes, you kind of start to think like, wow, everything I was fucking taught was a lie.
That was the same thing that came out with the Roswell stuff that we talked about earlier.
And
we talked about it in previous episodes. Like, all that stuff turned out to be factual.
Yeah, so it's like,
what are we really taking for granted?
It's good to be informed, but it'll make you fucking depressed because it is like a fucking fugazi.
Yeah.
That we live in to an extent. Like, it's fucking, most of the shit that we've been told is just bullshit and a lie to fit a narrative.
Conditional program.
Exactly. And like the fucking Roswell, like with Kennedy.
It just,
Like they've
dude,
used
it
the
just
same
really trips you
playbook.
out. Like it makes me like my head spin.
Here's what's crazy. They've used the same playbook for what, 70, 80 years now? Deny. It's like they still use, like, we haven't gotten into this, but like Charlie Kirk, there's a lot of shit that's come out with that. They're still using the same playbook they used with JFK and MLK and all these people and all these different events and the UFOs and stuff like that, Roswell. They're using the same playbook, and it's like they don't realize that the internet's real and people have access to shit now.
Right. More than they
Like,
ever have before.
More than they ever have before. So it was way easier to suppress shit. And the other thing too is like, how much shit were we taught in our history books in school? Napoleon has a great quote. History is written by the victors. How much of history has been fabricated bullshit and fit a narrative? And it didn't actually happen that way. With World War II, World War I, French Revolution.
Lots of stuff.
A lot of shit. Like, I'm giving examples of like JFK and Roswell and stuff that's happened in the last century. You don't think shit got manipulated 1,000 years ago and in Roman times in Greece? And like we know our history, but we don't know our history.
Yeah, it's conditional programming, dude. It's two words that literally explain everything that you're talking about.
Yeah. And with the miles and miles of tunnels under the Vatican, the secret, the
Vatican archives and all that shit. Is that
the archives. They imagine how much knowledge they have of real shit that happened that we're never gonna see.
Yep. Yeah. Completely. 100% agree.
So,
but I guess to close the show, I think a really cool like closing line to just sort of encompass the episode as a whole is whether reality is either from a technical perspective or a physical perspective in code or consciousness, whatever sort of side you end up on, understanding it and breaking it apart, it starts the same way. Pay attention, because there are things at work, as we've seen, that makes sense, and then there's other stuff where you're like, it might go this way.
Don't be afraid to ask questions.
But the question is do they want you to know the answer? Is there a initiative or a positive outcome for whoever for you not to know what's really going on? And is that the driving force that keeps you blind? It's
good question.
Like it's really crazy. It's this probably, other than the AI episode, has probably been one of my favorite ones, because it can get so deep.
Mm-hmm.
It can get so deep to the point where you're questioning sort of how you live your life.
Mm-hmm.
Are you really living your life, or is it all sort of plotted out,
pre-planned?
Yeah, it's insane. But like I said, this is probably one of the most I would probably say, other than the AI one, this is probably the most rabbit hole episode we've had. Like
the JFK one had a lot.
The JFK one was crazy, but this one, I would think, me personally, I think this one tops it.
It might.
But I like I said, like we would probably go for another we could probably go for another hour, 2 hours.
Well, you go for 2 hours because you could get into different universes in quantum theory.
Yeah, I mean, it would get, like I said, it's a really rabbit hole discussion, but I think we got some good information out of it. You and I sort of went back and forth, and like I said, it can get insanely deep, depending on how open-minded you are. Because again, conditional programming might not let you get that open-minded. But I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. I know this was sort of a longer one, but like I said, it's going to be more or less. It's going to be a no-cut episode where it's just us. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Dan, I don't know if you have any final thoughts before we wrap up.
Just thanks for listening. It was a fun one.
It's one of those conversations where you really have to sort of open your mind and free your mind, as they say in the movies. Like it as you talk about it, you start to extrapolate ideas and sort of make sense of things and all that kind of stuff. And it was a fun episode. I really had a lot of fun talking about it.
Yeah, likewise. It was good.
But like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Make sure to follow us on Obscuracast. It's both Instagram and X if you guys want to keep up with the episode postings, as well as follow us on Spotify. It's on Spotify as well as Apple Music. I forgot to mention that at the very beginning. And we're on both platforms. Make sure to follow us on both the social media handles on X.com and Instagram. And as always, I know I can probably speak for Dan. I'll let him say it himself, but you guys have been absolutely killing it on this show. I know we've been sort of stagnant over the last couple of maybe month or two. We've been, life happens and all that kind of shit, but we'll try to pump them out as quick as we can for you guys. We're trying to do it at least once a week. Once we get past the holidays, it should be a lot easier to get you guys some episodes at least every week. So, like I said, make sure to follow us on social. Make sure to follow us on Spotify and Apple Music, and we will see you guys in the next episode. Appreciate you guys, and make sure to follow us on all those platforms. We'll talk to you guys later.
See you.